Sound Advice continues here on Money Radio 1300 KKOL.
Hi, I'm Susan Michaels.
And I'm Rick O'Brien, and this is Sound Advice.
Today we're talking with Keith Hughes from West Seattle Natural Energy. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. First of all, tell us what natural energy means. What is natural energy?
Natural energy is something that man has not created or dug up or drilled. So natural energy in our context is the sun, the wind, and the water.
Okay. And also known as renewable energy, correct?
Yes, renewable energy is the general industry standard.
Okay. So give us a little bit of history about your business. How did you get involved in renewable energy yourself?
Well, we started back in 2006, we started on a major remodel of our home. I had been interested in paying attention to solar energy for a long time.
So this started as a home project?
Yes, this started as a home project for my own house.
All right.
And got out of hand like most home projects do. So we started looking for a source for solar power panels for our own home to include in our remodeling project. And there weren't a lot of choices in the Puget Sound area at that time. There were only 2 or 3 companies listed that did solar panels. And coincidentally, at the same time, there was a series on Discovery Channel documenting some case histories of homeowners that had done solar projects. Okay. And so we watched those and, had a pretty good idea of what was involved in this day and age solar systems, and had a rough idea of what it should cost based on the cost that they'd given us in this program. So then we went looking. And what I found was that we just couldn't find someone who was upfront and willing and able to do a solar project on our home for the prices that we had seen in our research.
So this came out of a need that you saw, hey, I want to do this, but I can't.
Yeah, it was a real
looking for someone that could help.
Looking for someone that would help us,
okay.
and I was a general contractor, and I felt like I could do a lot of the work myself. So we were also questioning people about, can we, is it an all or nothing thing, or can we do part of it as the homeowner and you do other parts of it as the solar contractor? And so those were the kind of things we were looking for, and we couldn't find anybody that met the need that we had. So being a general contractor, I started doing more research and found out where the wholesalers were that sold solar system components, set up accounts, bought all my own parts and pieces, and my son and daughter and I put a solar system on our house.
Very cool.
So that's how it started. Once we got it done on our house, I kind of looked at my son and daughter, who were both looking for work at the time, and went, this wasn't that hard. Maybe we could do this for other people at a reasonable cost.
Start your own business.
Yes.
Now, is the family still all involved with it?
Yes, it is a family business.
Okay.
So it's my wife's the bookkeeper, my daughter's the office manager and web manager. My son runs the installation crew, and I do all of the customer contact work.
Okay. Now, there are, like you mentioned, different types of natural energy sources. You said wind and sun and that type of thing. Are there any others? You have, wind and sun. Are there other sources?
Hydroelectric is considered a natural energy source. And we have some knowledge and some background in what's called micro hydro, using very small water-driven generators.
Okay.
And it's all, these are all kind of little niche markets. If you happen to live on a large piece of property that's got a creek running through it and all the conditions come out right where you can use that, then we can help people to utilize that resource as well.
Now, you can do some things that aren't where you're not really like putting up a dam where you're disrupting the nature. Because aren't there things that right down there in the water down in itself that work?
Yeah, there's 2 ways to do it with water. One is to put something right in the water, basically a little paddle wheel that turns a little generator. And there's some pretty nice ones out there, but that's a very small application. It doesn't make a lot of electricity.
Okay.
And then there's a little bit larger ones where you go uphill a little ways and put a pipe in the water with a screen over it, like a piece of 2-inch pipe, and let the water come through the pipe.
Oh,
and then
really?
that pipe attaches to a little generator. So the water's still passing through. So you're not taking anything away from the creek.
Right.
You're not disrupting the creek. And you're not putting anything in the creek. If you've got a creek that has fish and stuff
Sure.
in it, you don't want to paddle wheel down there banging things around. So this way you can just kind of basically siphon it off to the side and then put it back in on the other side.
Okay. Now, in the Northwest, what do you find people are looking for? You know, because we don't have that much sun.
Mostly, the vast majority of renewable energy business is solar electric
Solar.
system.
Okay.
And, one of the things that I do a lot of is I just, for lack of a better term, call them seminars, speaking engagements to all kinds of different groups, because we have a lot of urban myth around solar. Solar's been out there. It's been available to homeowners since the early 1970s. But the industry has changed drastically. And so, people that, my generation, leftover hippies basically, that wanted to be natural and all of that in our days in high school and college. And we saw solar energy as the wave of the future then, but it was very, very cost prohibitive. And so a lot of people have come through the generations, come through the years with that concept in their mind of what they saw in the 70s. So it's changed so much that I love doing seminars and stuff and spending time with groups of people where I can explain to them, this is how solar works in the 21st century. It's not like it was in the 60s and 70s.
Now, how has it changed?
The major change from the consumer standpoint is in the early days, you had to have a battery system. Solar panels make DC power, which is what batteries are.
Right.
We use AC power in our homes. You have to change that. Well, the way that was always done in the past was you used the solar panels basically to charge a large battery bank, and then you took that 12 volt or 24 volt power out of the battery bank and ran it through an inverter, changed it to AC, and then used it in your house. Well, batteries are big and they're heavy and they're full of acid,
Right.
and they wear out. And so that kept the market very, very tiny. It kept it down to people who wanted it bad enough to deal with a battery bank. So the big change has been in the last 10 years is the advent of a new type of inverter that could take that DC power directly in an extremely variable stream, because that was the problem before. When sometimes it's putting out 5 watts and sometimes it's putting out 150 watts, having a piece of machinery that can handle that huge range of input and turn that all into power that matches what you use in your house. Well, we have those inverters now. So now we do what the industry calls grid-tied systems. There's no battery bank involved. You can put the solar panels on your house, on a rack in your backyard, leaned up against the fence, doesn't matter. Run them into the new types of inverters that change that power directly to AC, and run that AC power directly into your breaker panel, just like the city runs their power into your breaker panel.
I guess I'm an electronic idiot because I'm not understanding this. The battery holds the power, and it isn't in your house just power flowing through it. So how does I'm not. Explain to me a little more how this works. Do you understand what my difficulty is here?
Electricity is always on the move.
Okay, yeah, right.
And it doesn't, it's kind of a funny concept, but it's kind of like a hose stuck in a river. As long as the river's flowing or the dam is producing electricity, it's going to come out the other end of the hose. Okay? The wonderment to people is what happens when you put your hand over the end of the hose. Does it turn off the generator at the dam because you stopped the flow? No. They have ways of dealing with that. So, yes, electricity is always moving. So in previous generations, what you did was you made that electricity with the solar panels. The flow was through the batteries, then through an inverter, then into your house where your appliances or light bulbs consume that electricity.
Okay.
So now
the way that I'm imaging is that it's like water filling up a container, that you're putting this energy into a battery that fills it up. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Because you can't. A battery will only, just like a container.
Yeah.
If you have a 50-gallon container and the hose is still turned on, what happens when you've accumulated 50 gallons? The hose is still on. It's got to go somewhere.
Okay.
It's going to run over the top.
Right.
Okay, so with battery systems, that was a huge issue.
Oh, really?
Because they're going to keep getting energy in from the panels. What happens when they're full?
When
What
they
do you do with
overcharge
that?
and
Doesn't go out.
Yeah, if you don't have something running to use up that electricity, then you're going to overcharge your batteries, which is going to overheat your batteries and burn them out. So then instead of having a battery that lasts 10 years, suddenly 3 years down the line,
right.
you've burned up $1,000 worth of batteries because you've overcharged them.
And so the new system just keeps everything flowing.
The new system, we've taken the batteries out of
Right.
the loop completely. So now the solar panels make the electricity in a DC format. It goes into an inverter, changes it directly to AC. That goes right into your breaker panel. So if you're using any electricity in your house, you're using that energy that you made. If you're all here at the office and there's nobody home and you're not using any electricity, with the new systems now, that energy that your solar system is making is going right through your breaker panel, right out through your meter, right back out onto the grid, and your next door neighbors are using it. When it's doing that, because it's going back through your meter, it's turning your meter backwards.
Does your meter
Really?
actually go
It
backwards?
physically goes backwards. So that puts credit on
That's
your
a
electric
nice thing
bill.
to see, isn't it?
Yeah. My wife loves it. She has videos she sends to her relatives of the meter going backwards. Because that's how it pays for itself.
Wow.
Because you don't store it. If it's all day long your system's sitting there making
Right.
electricity, you're not using it. You don't have to worry about storing it. It's going right back out onto the
I
grid.
see.
So now the grid is your storage medium. You put power into it. You get credit for that. At night when you go home and turn your big screen TV on, you use up that power. What you're using up your credits. So you're not
see.
paying for electricity.
Okay.
You're just using up your credits.
Wow.
Oh, that is amazing.
Now, is this something that the average everybody can do in their home?
Every home is capable of being set up that way. Not every home is capable of using solar energy. There are some criteria. And that's one of our primary jobs as a solar installation company is to go to your home, look at it physically, make sure that it fits the criteria, make sure that the money you spend is going to be well spent.
Okay, well, now that I got in my brain a little more about how this works, we're going to take a short break. I'm Rick O'Brien,
And I'm Susan Michaels.
and this is Sound Advice. We'll be right back.
Sound Advice returns in a moment on Money Radio 1300 KKOL.